Hello and welcome to Red's Business and Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Barnes.
And I'm your co-host, Brad Ferris.
Today we're sitting down with Ryan Coe, who's a professor of cybersecurity at the University of Queensland, or UQ for everyone around here, and also the co-founder of a CSCAU, the Cybersecurity Certification Australia. Ryan, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Looking forward to getting some insights, mostly a cybersecurity conversation today, which some of our audience I think will be happy about, and others will kind of go, oh, I don't want not another cyber episode, but that's okay. You've come highly recommended from Darren Hopkins and Peter Maynard, your business partner at CSCAU, so it should be good to get some insights. Mate, let's start, Ryan, with your background way back before you started doing lecturing cybersecurity.
So I was an engineer. I went to the semiconductor industry. After 2 years, went back to do a PhD, and at the end of my PhD, I was joining a competition. And then in the competition in Los Angeles, I won the first prize of that competition.
What competition? Like computer
It was
science?
the IEEE Services Cup. So you have to do some services computing. It's pre-cloud computing days. Do some demo on automation. At the time, it was AI, but AI winter at the time. So people were ashamed to talk about AI as AIs, but it's AI planning, just doing an automated business process formulation for services. And then I won the first prize. One of the judges was from HP, and he said, would you like to work for HP Labs? I was like, yep, why not? I took the job, went in, and they were saying, look, we now, as Hewlett-Packard, we have about, at a time, 70% of the world's data center market right now. We would like to see how we can transit into the up-and-coming cloud industry.
Yep.
And just name us the 5 most important problems in the next 5 years. And because at HP Labs, our job is basically we're trying to create the next generation products of HP. So you see, I saw many crazy things inside there. It's like a science lab. I saw foldable paper that's electronic and, that kind of thing.
Right.
So lots of things that never saw the day of light. But, so I thought about it, cloud computing, you got to put stuff into other people's hands. Talk to a few business owners, my friends who are running businesses. They said, no, but we don't trust you. We won't be having our data in your cloud.
Right.
Yeah, that's more than 10 years ago. So
leave it in one building.
Everyone's doing it the opposite right now. So it's quite interesting. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll just propose privacy, security, and trust issues and products around that. And I proposed it to my boss. He gave me the blessings. I was sent from Singapore to Bristol to Palo Alto in California, and then we were producing new generations of data tracking or data provenance computer tools.
Yeah, right.
We track stuff at the kernel level so that we can detect different rootkits or malware that usually would bypass a lot of normal detection.
Yep.
And then HP bought ArcSight. And then ArcSight was saying, hey, you can apply this into our SIEM, our Security Information and Event Management tool.
Yep.
So spoke to the founders at ArcSight, say, hey, how do we do that? And then one of the features of ArcSight now feature one of my team's works. So
yeah, right.
So since then, I spoke to my PhD supervisor one day, caught up, and then he said, look, I know you really like industry and you're enjoying yourself, but do you remember the first time you met me? What did you say? I said, yeah, I said to you that I wanted to be a professor. He said, now is the time, Ryan.
So you've always wanted to be a professor?
Yeah, I wanted to be an academic since I was starting. I just felt it was a great role where you can challenge the frontiers of research and also guide a lot of people at the same time. Yeah, and still be in touch with industry if you want to. So it's a balance of all worlds, kind of like the most flexible job in the world.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
because most people, I'd say, with your kind of background doing that would try and create a new product or technology or something overseas and try and blow it up, for example, or go want to work your way up in the massive chain at HP, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty good experience because we were about 600 researchers in HP Labs located around the world, all reporting to the CEO. So we got to see the then CEOs. We saw a few change over time, and we worked directly with them. Got to see the bright and very intelligent people. There's one guy, Owen Sobel. First time I went into the Palo Alto office, I saw his name tag on the table. I was like, I think I read this guy's textbook before.
Yeah, right. That's cool.
It was about edge detection on images, and then so I got to know him. He likes bird watching.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, we went for chats and lunches and all.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very interesting. He talking about edge detection and how he doesn't want it to be used against him one day, for missiles and other things.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the cybersecurity topic. So I went into academia, applied worldwide, got job offers from Australia and New Zealand, and went to the New Zealand one. Saw the environment at University of Waikato.
Yep.
Was pretty good for research and nice environment for teaching. Went there, the head of school that time asked me, what do you want to do? I said, I noticed you don't have a cybersecurity lab. Can I start one? So I started that in 2012. And then, so that became the first cybersecurity lab, and we offered the first Master of Cybersecurity degree in the country. Cool. One thing led to another, so that brought our group on a path where we became the highest funded group in the country for computer science grants. Using the grants, we managed to build more, and then we started to run the national competition, New Zealand Cybersecurity Challenge. Started working with the Interpol, the NSA, and so on.
Right.
And I got myself into ISO standards editing as well. So it was pretty good 7 years, I think. And then UQ came calling and they said,
so 2019, you came to Brisbane.
2019, yes, I came here.
You got poached.
I got kind of, yeah. But I think the mindset is, because I did it in New Zealand, I hopefully I can replicate it here.
Okay.
UQ has a pretty good history with CyberCert, being founded in 1992 as the world's second oldest computer emergency response team after Carnegie Mellon University. Yep. So I've always been a fanboy of CyberCert. From across the Tasman, I was like, oh, these guys are so cool. They are the frontiers. And the university I was at was the first connection point of the internet as well for New Zealand at the time.
Yep. So
I was like, oh, this is great. So came here, I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's gonna be tough, but I like the challenge. Took it up, and here I am.
Well, that's great because, to be honest, that's a big challenge the cybersecurity industry has, which we might circle back to later in Australia, probably globally, is the amount of resources, trained cybersecurity professionals in Australia is really, really low. Way under demand. I think there's short 20,000 people or something in Australia to meet actual demand.
Some reports say 26,000, some say 18,000 by 2026.
Yep.
Some of the industry experts say it's a bit lower, but but one thing's for sure is we are short.
And to be honest,
quality stuff.
Most stuff that cybersecurity and security operations centers are offshore, almost all of them. I don't think there's a really, really small amount locally here, and there's people who have a couple SOC analysts looking at stuff locally, but the actual full security operations centers in Australia is really, really low. What kind of cybersecurity courses are you teaching currently?
So I run the UQ's Master of Cybersecurity. I designed the curriculum. The course that I teach is the first one. So everyone who comes into the degree, actually, either the grad cert or the grad diploma or the master's degree, they all come through this course. It's called Fundamentals of Cybersecurity. So anyone who comes in, basically our degree takes in people from any background. So if you have a bachelor's degree in any, say music, arts, social science, we take you. So we've had students who are returning to work moms, veterans. We have people with music degrees. We have people from journalism degrees and so on coming onto our courses. And then they get retrained. And they bring their very unique perspective and a different diversity of thought. And sometimes the discussions in class are pretty interesting because we would simulate different scenarios. So my course goes through about 12 weeks of different perspectives of cybersecurity, from geopolitics to law, to business management, risk management, standardization, norms and frameworks, to different computer science challenges, emerging technologies, and criminology aspects, and many more, and ending with the career options. Cool. So it's kind of like I call myself a museum guide. You know, like you are entering the museum of cybersecurity, and then you don't know where to start. You don't know where maybe Mona Lisa is or the famous sculptures are, and you may like modern art instead of the Renaissance art and so on. You know, so my role was to introduce them to the spectrum of different types of challenges, and then bring them into, so if they like it, they will go into specialization. So further on in their degree, they specialize in the 4 fields: cyber defense, cyber criminology, cryptography, and leadership. So leadership looks at converting existing IT managers into cyber security, or existing managers into cybersecurity leaders. It's run by the business school, so you get a taste of the cyber MBA that we designed.
So has that landscape changed much? Like the frontiers, I think you mentioned, of cybersecurity, are those fundamental areas much different from when you built your first course in New Zealand to now?
It's changed pretty much and has intensified a lot. The geopolitical. So the first degree that I designed in New Zealand was a combination of computer science and law subjects.
Okay.
And that's it. And then the second iteration was computer science, law, and some parts of criminology. But now it's almost everything.
Yeah.
So
I get that, because I imagine it would have been, if you roll back 15 years, it would have been mostly make sure your stuff is patched and there's an antivirus on stuff. That was cybersecurity, right? Like 15, 20 years ago?
There were some things that still remain. For example, we talk about, at the time, ransomware was emerging as probably the most profitable for criminals. And we were transiting from banking Trojans to ransomware attacks and so on. And then we got to work with some companies like Trend Micro and all. And then we ran the ransomware samples in a sandbox and study the behavior and visualize them for the public to see. So things like that haven't changed. There's some things that changed massively. For example, the diversity of the people that's coming in, and the fact that you don't have to explain why cybersecurity. Because in the beginning, when we started the first degree in New Zealand, we had to explain that we're not training hackers. Because everyone looked at the Hollywood movies and they looked at hoodies and all. So and when I came to UQ, I made it a point that none of our advertising or branding material had anyone wearing a hoodie.
Or the skull and crossbones on top of some bits and bytes.
And we don't type fast, on like
the matrix
the
code.
matrix code. So it's a perception change. You don't have to explain what is cybersecurity now. Everybody knows that, so it's easier. But now the challenge now is how to do game-changing things that change the landscape, that can make us a safer place. So I'll give you an example. CAPTCHA. So we use online forms.
Yep.
And CAPTCHA is just a simple concept. It's basically a reverse Turing test, testing whether you are a human instead of whether you're a machine. So you test it, but the whole implementation of CAPTCHA into the web form eradicated the entire web spam problem effectively. Before CAPTCHA, there were so many bots that automatically generate those entries into forms. Yeah. And people running websites just couldn't handle them. And CAPTCHA just simply do that. So it's interesting.
I do want to unpack what kind of research you're doing now, but Brad, where do you want to take this conversation? Because I've got a couple areas I could go in.
Oh, I've got one more question.
Sure.
So is it fair to say, based on what you said and the people that come through the course curriculum, is there a technical element, or is it fairly more around the risk and governance side? Or?
Yeah. So I would say that slightly close to 60% of the people coming in still wants to do a technical element. There's about 20 to 30% doing the GRC risk-related auditing type of jobs. And then there's a few more doing criminology and a minority doing cryptography.
Okay.
Yeah. It's my hope that more people will look into cryptography and more people look into criminology, because that's kind of like the new frontiers. Back to your question, I think at that time when I started the first degree, and now this is the third degree, The first degree, I think the frontiers were innovative technology solutions. Now the frontiers are, if you look at the people, process, and technology, the frontiers are actually in the people and process. Yeah, that's the part that hasn't seen a lot of innovation. Yeah.
So you've got people going to study cybersecurity without a technical background. How does that work exactly? Because
Yeah.
I'll just explain this as like clear as possible for like me and people listening.
Yeah.
So I would imagine you would need to know like what server is, what storage is, what the cloud is, infrastructure,
Yep.
computing, applications, like what identity, like all the fundamental stuff that
Yep.
we talk about in like the technology world. You have to really understand that at a base level to discuss cybersecurity, right?
Yes. And so we have 4 courses in the beginning, which is 4 courses in 6 months. And you can leave after that. And some people get a job after the 6 months and they leave with a grad cert.
Right.
The 4 courses are all taught in non-technical language.
Okay.
So the course that I teach, I have to explain what is malware, how the computer works, how a computer mirrors functions of a human body. You have a brain, and the brain is a CPU, but some parts of the memory is also the RAM, and then sometimes you need to store stuff and you want to use it again, it's a storage.
Okay.
That kind of thing. So we call it pockets, and so we use this kind of analogy. We have some reading material, so we have a few fold kind of ways of teaching. So we let them read something, get them not just reading but also watching videos, like what's the Morris worm and how did the Morris worm happen? Are we still seeing the problem now? The answer is yes. We're still seeing the problem where there's poor authentication across computers and hence worms spread, that kind of thing. So people get to, the approach is what we call a Socratic approach. We ask questions, we lead into the brain, and they ask questions, they internalize it for themselves. And at the end of the 4 courses, all of them know about the problem. They may not know about how to code. They may not know how to do a system administration, but they can grasp the problem very well and recommend solutions towards it.
So you've seen people go through your 4 courses, starting non-technical,
Yep.
and then get a cybersecurity job after?
Yeah, many of them.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
and that's like a very early exit for them.
Yep.
Because after the 4 courses, we go into half a year of specialization if you don't have the necessary background. So if you're going to cyber defense, you will need a computer science, IT, software engineering background. In the next half a year, we actually do basics. So we do introductory courses that are intertwined with undergraduate courses that talk about databases, web, networks, and so on. By the end of 1 year, they know the problem. When they are taught the technology, or maybe even the criminology background, or even the business and management background, or the cryptography background, they can then do the second year in application where they go deep. So that's when the advanced courses go in.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. And then that's the third half or year. The final half year is what we address is another key skills shortage challenge. A lot of companies are looking for unicorns. They want somebody with 10 years degree, 10 years experience,
Yep.
but young and energetic and
Yeah.
highly qualified CISSP certified and
Yeah. Ready to learn.
CISM, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bridge that gap, build a portfolio for the students before they graduate from the 2-year masters. So at the last year, in the first 6 months, they get to design the project. The last 6 months, they get to implement a capstone project.
Okay.
So it's kind of like 2 or 3 days a week with the industry partner working on a real world problem. Industry partner gets to try before they buy also. So many of them actually gets hired.
Yep.
Yeah.
You mentioned before we went on air, there's some cybersecurity research you're doing. You mentioned like some exciting stuff that obviously you can disclose.
Sure. Yeah. So my traditional background is always in tracking data, right? Looking at how things, but I always find that it's very challenging to look at just the technical aspects, and then that's where I get pushed out into the technical, from technical into the non-technical domains. So one of the areas that I'm being exposed to, as I was the director of the Institute of New Zealand Institute for Security and Crime Science, was the richness of the crime prevention techniques in traditional crime that can be applied into cybercrime. And some of the things that I recently did was applying this group of techniques called situational crime prevention. There are 25 techniques to prevent crime, but cybersecurity only uses 2 out of the 25.
Okay.
So there's 23 more.
What are the 2? Look.
The 2 is making it harder,
Yep.
which is what we do all the time, right?
Yep.
And trying to remove excuses.
Okay.
Yeah. Logging, right? Getting logs, trying to find evidence. That's it.
Yep.
But there's so many others, right? Removing motivation and many other families. There's 5 families. I can't remember them off the head right now, but check it out. SCP, crime prevention, situational crime prevention. The concept comes from the traditional crime theories, which was saying that, look, criminology came from the mindset that maybe we should look in the traditional criminology thinking was maybe we should look in the criminal mind and understand how the criminal works. So that's what cybersecurity is now talking about, what's the mind of the criminal and all.
Yeah, not just when businesses get hit, how do you recover, but
that's right.
What are they looking for? Why are they attacking?
Why, yeah. But there's a group within this criminology group, the scientists who think that, no, it's not about because everyone will commit a crime if there's an opportunity. So how do we reduce the opportunity? How do we change the environment in which a potential criminal may operate? So an example was this street, right, in the US, which had a lot of drive-by shooting.
Okay.
And they said, let's do it from an environmental change point of view. Let's change this so that the drive-by shooting never happens again. So what they did was a modification to the road where they made it a dead end and the cars have to U-turn
right
at the dead end. And because if you want to do a drive-by shooting, you have to U-turn back.
Yeah.
They'll shoot back at you.
Yeah. Okay.
So the environment was changed, and because of that, crime was prevented. And now the same thing can be applied into cyber as well. Are we able to change the environment so that this kind of cyber drive-bys can be reduced? So,
yeah, okay.
So this is some of the latest works that I'm working on. Yeah.
Interesting.
I thought you were getting interviewed for a second there, mate. A little journey into the criminal mind.
Yeah. You mentioned as well some of the Cyber World Cup that you've run, and I believe Australia and New Zealand's gone quite well in. Do you want to elaborate on what that is? Because I've never heard of a Cyber World Cup in my life. But that sounds cool.
Is it annual or every 4 years?
It's annual.
Okay.
So it was planned actually just before COVID. When I was in New Zealand, we were running the New Zealand Cyber Challenge, so that gained a bit of prominence because we invited overseas teams.
Yep.
And in 2019, as I was moving here, some of the overseas organizers were saying, hey, we should all get together, kind of like a FIFA or, a regulatory body that comes together to organize a World Cup.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, sounds cool. Count me in. And so what do? They said, oh, you will represent the Oceania region. And I was like, oh, this is perfect because I've been to both of the largest countries in the South Pacific, right? So I was like, okay, why not? Turns out to be a very naive yes, because it turns out to be a lot of work. but we ran it we wanted to do it in 2020 or 2021, but we weren't able to do for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then 2022, we ran the first Oceania Cybersecurity Challenge to qualify youths from 18 to 25 years old to go to the grand finals at that time in Athens in Greece. And this year was in San Diego in California.
Yeah, right.
The first first team was 16 youths, about 11 Aussies and 5 Kiwis. This year's team is 11 Aussies and 6 Kiwis. And in fact, some of the Kiwis actually went through some of the competitions I used to run. So it's like full circle. They come back and,
yeah, right.
It's you again, So, yeah, so we actually managed to, in the first instance, we got 4th place. And this year we actually got 2nd.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What's involved in a Cyber World Cup? What are they doing exactly?
So we
just go and hack into this. You set up like a scenario for them.
There are a few challenges. So it's the first is to capture the flag. So That's another big change since I started until now. Capture the flag competitions used to be custom made and you have to do a lot of effort. But now there are so many platforms, you can just run them quite easily. But the capture the flag competition is round one. You get scores and you try to get as much scores as possible and you solve the challenges. After that, there is an attack and defense round, which also includes, for this year, we also included a hardware round, hardware challenge. So these people are stretched. They are usually put in out of their comfort zones because most people will just be focusing on specializing. So some of the competitors are specialists in cryptography, for example, or binary exploitation, or that kind of thing. So, and then when they're put across, it's when the team comes in because you need to have different specialties. For example, you need a defender, you need a striker, you need a goalkeeper.
Right.
Yeah, and so on, right? So this is the exact thing. There's substitutes as well that you can use, and there's strategies.
Yeah. And you're not training hackers, just to be clear.
No, we're not.
You're teaching them practicing on attack and defense.
No.
How do you do? I'm joking a little bit, but how do you enforce ethics? Because you are kind of showing people how to, you're trying to help people train them how to defend from cyber criminals, obviously, right? But giving them a lot of exposure to the criminal way of doing things and that kind of thing. How do you enforce ethics for you?
So it is a key part of everything that we do in teaching and research, and also in training of competitions. So for teaching, we tend to cover the legal implications. That's the crime brings you more years in jail than some other crimes. And the consequences, we let them sign declarations. They have to attest that they wouldn't do this, and then it has to be witnessed by a peer. In ethics, in research ethics are important, very tantamount, because you don't want fake results and fake outcomes. And then we have the training-wise, it's the same thing. So there is a code of conduct. There are ethical expectations. People who come to the competitions typically want to do the right thing, and they see a good career outcome out of it. And we always say, look, there's people circling around. The sponsors who are helping us to sponsor this are actually recruiting. So many of them are actually recruited in the end. So that
right.
And ethics is also enforced in the way they do it. From time to time, you might see some. So before the people who actually, let me just put it, people who actually qualify for the finals typically wouldn't have any ethical issues.
Right.
Because they'll be weeded out long before that, because their peers will point them out.
Right.
Or tell on them.
Right.
Yeah. So you get a kind of natural selection.
Yeah.
I started organizing competitions in 2014. That was the first New Zealand Cybersecurity Challenge. Was because I just felt that there was a gap in the way we teach cyber, or the way we research cyber, because there's learning from the lectures and tutorials and hands-on exercises, and then there's this thing called peer learning. And because of the pace of cybersecurity, you can't just depend on lectures and tutorials.
Yeah. Outdated.
It's outdated.
Year, right?
Yeah. So the team now, like for example, the latest team Oceania that just got in, they're teaching each other about the latest AI techniques to automate some of their detection.
Yeah. Have you put any of that into your teachings recently? Looks like AI is a massive topic now.
We have a topic called AI in cybersecurity, so
cool.
It has been from the go-get. Yeah, but those are the theoretical concepts and the classical machine learning and AI techniques. These guys, they're using the latest.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
but a bit different.
Yeah, a bit different. Yeah.
Last week you were down in Melbourne for the CyberCon, the biggest cybersecurity event of the year, hosted by Asia. What were 3 takeaways from that event this year?
I guess one takeaway was it's a great. I think it's a coming of age. For the conference. So you get to see not just the usual suspects, the same faces.
Yep.
You see a second and a third generations of cyber professionals.
Is that because of the more people studying cyber, or because of all the large recent breaches like end of last year and early this year?
I think it's all of the above.
Yeah.
So you got to see people who are trying to break into the industry. You get to see students who are volunteering, and then you see interactions. There's a career village, and there's a coming of age and you get to see foreign delegates as well. So there are visitors from the UK or Lithuania and other countries coming to see the CyberCon. So it's quite interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
What were the other two takeaways from the event last week?
The other two was mainly, the second one was in the area of the topics. Some topics, I found that it's quite interesting to see that the supply chain related topics tend to have people standing at the back because there's not enough seats.
Right.
Yeah.
Third-party supply chain risk, yeah.
Supply chain risk. I think people are scared because they don't know how to get a sense of it and the responsibilities on all the cybersecurity professionals.
Yep.
Right. So that's the second takeaway, I guess.
Yep.
The third takeaway is that I was able to see this inclusive mindset because they get to bring different types of thoughts and thinking. So that was really attractive because I get to listen to different perspectives. I see people from different backgrounds. So it's kind of like mirroring what we're trying to do at UQ with the interdisciplinary approach. But this one is on scale.
Yep.
So it is pretty interesting to see this inclusive nature of cyber that's forming. Yeah.
Because I think there was a big, previous to this year, cyber industry versus the IT industry kind of thing, where cyber professionals were like, no, you guys are, IT guys, and we hear all crazy stories coming both ways, to be honest. Do you feel like that's a little bit kind of getting diffused recently?
Oh, it's definitely diffused because if you look at the name badges of all the people, they're not from cyber or IT companies. They're from end users, they're from clients, they're from government agencies or departments. And you're just like, oh, this is like a, like I say, it's the coming of age of the audience of the conference where it starts to break down these barriers.
Yep. Let's shift gears a little bit to the Cybersecurity Certification Australia. You started with Peter Maynard, which we, from Cybermetrics, who we had on the show actually maybe 6 months ago or so. Why did you start that, and how's that going? So,
like I mentioned earlier in the show, I was an ISO editor for about more than 10 years now, and I've done a few. I'm in the technical committee that regulates the SC27. It's called SC27. The long name is ISO IEC JTC1 SC27.
Yep.
But 27,000 series came from this committee. And one of the challenges that I see is that the pace of the standards development doesn't match the pace of the evolution of cyber.
Yep.
One ISO standard takes about 6 years to get published.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And 6 years is a long
6
long
years.
time.
That's right. Every second we have 4 new malware created.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's not working very well.
It's an uphill battle, that one.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle. So there has to be a way to radically change that, but yet not compromise on the quality of the standard. It has to address something. The other challenge for the ISO standards is the fact that most of them are not descriptive because it's intentionally so. It's created as a guideline where you can customize as a consultant, but because it's not prescriptive, it doesn't tell you should do A, then B, then C. Some of the small and medium businesses don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like saying that, let's go for the ISO standards because they're the gold standard. It's like telling someone who doesn't know martial arts, you have to be a black belt.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. To be safe, you have to be a black belt. But what about the colored belts?
Yeah.
We start from white, right?
Yep.
And then we go up the levels. So this is the mindset. How do we change this? How do we create an organization that creates a new breed of standards, right? That's focused on this kind of small and medium businesses, which forms more than 90%, probably 97% of the economy that has been neglected because they cannot get a black belt.
Yeah. And there were some stats out actually. I think 62% of breaches in the first 6 months of this year in Australia were for businesses with less than 100 staff. But the newspaper gets all the big ones, obviously. But the majority of breaches are the fairly small businesses.
Yeah, small businesses, and some of them pay the ransom,
Yeah.
and they go hush hush, don't talk about it.
Yep.
But it just there's a statistic that shows that more than 50% of such businesses also go bust after
Yeah.
the cyber attack.
Yeah, right.
So it's a business destroying kind of situation. So we need to be able to bring the standards to be best practice, prescriptive, and is guided for the lowest common denominator. Everyone, from the florist to the butcher to the sparky, and then to the lawyers who are also less than 10 people in the law firm, to the accountants who does tax returns for people. These people are handling some of the interesting data that cyber criminals would target.
Yep.
But nobody's there to protect them. So what we want to do, so when I met Peter, he was sharing his frustrations about being, an SME and also servicing the SME as well, the SMB sector. One of the frustration is that because you're asking people to do a black belt, people don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to do the step one. So he said, look, why don't we look into something that has tiers? So, and then we came together, and then we looked at it. We said, okay, let's change the way this is done. We break it down into digestible levels. So we have 5 levels, and level 1 has 6 controls or 6 measures.
Right.
Yeah, which are basically cyber hygiene. First step is you should find an IT support guy. Yeah, or IT support provider.
Yeah.
Right, and then IT support provider found, then you need to update your passwords regularly. You need to be able to look at creating a backup for your stuff, and many more that are really easy to do. And then level 2, we start to introduce a little bit more encryption-based techniques like multi-factor authentication. If you have a website, make sure it has TLS turned on for HTTPS and so on. And then we start to go up more and more. And each time you actually do a little bit more until you're at level 5, and you realize that you're just almost ISO 27001,
Yeah.
which is level 6.
It's definitely needed, because I agree. The cost for a small business to go and do ISO 27001 is pretty ridiculous. And you're right about the 6-year thing, because I don't know if it's still the case, but I know a couple of years ago, the framework was very much speaking about on-premise infrastructure. It was all worded around that. I believe it's not so much anymore, but you can't keep up with everything going on. So it's great that what you're achieving there. And I believe you get an actual certificate out as well when you do it.
Yeah. So
can you explain that?
So CSCAU is a standards making body. There's a standards issuing body. It's called a conformity assessment body, which will help organizations to certify against it, and it's CyberCert. So CyberCert actually helps the people to get a certificate out of it. There'll be an attestation process, and at the end of it, they get a badge, which they can say that, look, I'm ready to articulate that I'm level 1 of SMB 1001. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's definitely needed. How is that going? Where is it at now? How many people have been accredited, gone through the process, and what's the plan for the next couple of years?
So the last 2 years, Peter has been doing this manually, and he has been going around the councils and some agencies in the Pacific, working with them on different aspects of certification on these 5 levels. What we're currently doing with CyberCert is we are automating some of the processes. And we're also doing disruption in the sense that if you want to do level 1, it only costs you $95 to get certified. Level 2 is $195.
Right.
Yeah.
So very cost effective.
Very cost effective.
But are you actually going and checking what they've got? Or is it just a question?
So that's where our innovation comes in. We check what they got, and it's an attestation process. And we also ask the directors or the people with fiduciary duties to come and attest that they have done, for example, found an IT provider and done the automatic updates or the 6 measures of level 1, and it's a director attestation.
Right.
So you're effectively moving the responsibility from the IT person to the director, which is aligned to the AICD guidelines on the responsibilities of the board.
Which is also what happens in reality anyway. 'Cause
Exactly, yeah.
if a business gets breached, the IT manager can just resign and run away with the directors in there with, losing customer
So
data.
there's
and
no
so on.
requirement, so there's no audit per se?
So there is an audit from levels 4 and 5.
Okay.
Yeah, so we work with
Right.
companies, MSPs or other certification companies to do the audit. So there's an audit process. So levels 1 to 3 is self-attestation,
Yep.
which is aligned to most of the, so for example, CMMC in the US, level 1 is self-attestation. The reason is because you want to scale it. So,
Yeah.
millions of people to be audited is impossible.
Yep.
Yep.
But when you go to levels 4 and 5, these are the companies which possibly can hire more than one IT person, and they are the ones who are able to be audited as well.
Yep.
And then we work with companies that are consulting companies that are able to help us to service and audit on the either implementing or auditing of the controls.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you tried to, for the end users of the accreditation, try and use this certificate to try and reduce cyber insurance and those kind of things yet?
So we haven't looked into feeding into reducing cyber insurance, but it's a great thought that we had as well, which is why we have been focusing a lot of our energy in creating a great governance structure around CSEAU. One of the steering committee members is actually the Insurance Council of Australia.
Right.
Yeah. So we've got we've set up a structure where we have a steering committee of representatives from different parts of Australia. So we've got the ASD on board, Government of South Australia to represent state level concerns, and also to articulate more into the different needs of the state governments. And also we have, for example, Australian Digital Health Agency. We've got COSBOA representing small businesses, and we've got the Insurance Council of Australia, and many more.
Yep.
McGrath-Nicol, BDO, and so on. So we managed to assemble a pretty good group, and it's independently chaired by Jason Morrell, the previous group executive of AusCyber.
Yep.
And then this committee is for this SMB 1001 standard, but it's also there's governance over it, where there's a standards and certification oversight body, SCOB, that's made up of people who are very experienced either in the sector or in the standards making space to make sure the standard is created in the right way. And that's been our effort so far with Peter, and now we're moving into getting some of the people through the certification bodies.
So it's live now? People have gone through it already?
It's starting to be live
Yep.
very soon. So I think in the next couple of months, we're starting to see people going through the automation system. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
So the cybersecurity industry for small businesses, I'd say, is evolving rapidly, and it used to be only large businesses took cybersecurity seriously, and now a lot more businesses are taking it seriously. What do you think it's going to look like in 5 years' time?
5 years' time, I think one thing that we need to look out for is the change to the Privacy Act. I'm sure you probably have noticed that they're flagging that they will be removing the exemption of small businesses from the Privacy Act requirements, especially in the notifiable data breach scheme. There's a big responsibility for small and medium businesses. So we just believe that there's going to be a huge regulatory load on the small and medium businesses, and there's a need for them to articulate that they are compliant.
Yep.
So this is one of the trends in the next 5 years. The other trend that we see in the next 5 years is the small and medium businesses would have a desire to use their cyber maturity as a way to gain more procurement. So if they're supplying to a large business, say an airline or a mining company or a retailer, a large supermarket, they're able to to say, look, I'm at level 1 or I'm at level 2, and then the retailer can say, look, I want people to be at level 2. Are you level 2? Yes,
Yeah.
I am. Yeah. So this is going to be another. So there's going to be a larger demand. Yeah.
I think it started already, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like we're getting us from our clients now for that kind of stuff, right? Where give us some proof that we're at some certain level that we can put on our proposals to go back to, like, yes, contracts and stuff require certain things now, but not all, not many.
Yep.
And a lot of other big businesses are looking at third-party supply chain risk, like you mentioned before.
Yep.
But some of our clients are actually saying, what can we stamp on our proposals saying we're cyber safe and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So that's starting already. So I think you're right. That'll definitely happen. I want to get your thoughts on the Microsoft recent announcement of the $5 billion investment into Australia to create a cyber shield for Australian small businesses. Yes. How did you interpret that?
Well, the number is big, and in Australian context, probably not in the American context, but in the Australian context, it's a large investment. So it's a good sign because it's a large company that's used by almost every country in the world, investing so much into Australia. It's also addressing a few things. For example, they're going to expand the data centers in Australia. Although Brisbane was not listed as one of the cities, I would have wished that they had put a data center here as well.
Yeah,
it's Canberra, Sydney, and Melbourne. And then they talked about the 300,000 professionals they're going to support. Maybe it's still early days, but I would like to see more details about how they would be able to support that.
Yep.
Because 300,000 is a large number. But if they can support that, then we have a very good labor force. So that's excellent.
I hope it's for something meaningful, not just getting more data center. more tin in data centers that they're buying, and more 365 licensing they can provision. Although that is definitely a good method for basic controls for small businesses, leveraging business premium to turn on MFA and a bunch of those other kind of basic security technology things. So I mean that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But this sounded pretty exciting. So I did want to get your feedback. I do want to get your feedback as well on, so Claire, the Minister of Cybersecurity in Australia, has the vision of making Australia the most cyber safe country by 2030. What do you think we need to do?
Well, we need to look beyond 2030. Yeah. We need to look beyond 2040, actually. And we need to build kind of like a long-term roadmap and address the big chunks of gaps. So we need to, like I mentioned, the small and medium businesses is the 97% of the economy that we have neglected. That's an area. In terms of skills, there's an area that's neglected as well, currently by the industry, which is we're lacking people like myself, academics and trainers and lecturers.
Yeah, to be honest, I was going to say that, Ryan, from our conversation, is that kind of what you're doing is exactly what I think Australia needs to do, have more people teaching cybersecurity, making it so you don't have to do a computer science background to get into cybersecurity. And also the accreditation for small businesses really actually helps, I think, because there is a massive gap in 27,001 and needs something in between. So I think the couple of things you're doing is exactly what...
Are any of the other major universities offering a similar...
Yes, so I think there are a few other universities, but I've never seen something as interdisciplinary as us so far. But as a TEXA external assessor, I've done about quite a number of assessment and accreditation for TEXA last 2 years. And I'm seeing a trend where the rough model of my interdisciplinary approach is being copied by some of the new offerings. So it's a good validation.
There you go.
Copying is the best flattery. Yeah.
What other challenges does the cybersecurity industry have in Australia?
I think one of the challenges is there's the talk about sovereign capability. I guess to be truly sovereign, it's very challenging, mainly because of we don't provide end-to-end production. Yeah, so and not just the hardware but also software as well.
Yeah.
So it's a long journey. So by 2030, I think it's less than 10 years, so it's very hard. So kind of like, I was walking in Central Station and looking at the train stations photographs, and the train tracks were built more than 100 years ago, because they had a vision to link different parts of Queensland. And then Qantas, right, Queensland and Northern Territory Air Services, was started in Winton because they wanted to send mail across. And these are the visionary investment. It can be by government, it can be by industry, that builds something beyond. So this is something that's missing in Australia now. The investment into game-changing, the future captchas that we can create, that we can be proud of, and say this is an Aussie invention, like Wi-Fi. This is an Aussie invention, and it's changed the world. Yeah. So I think we should really invest in research, and a lot on research and keeping the research here. An example is the solar, the photovoltaic solar panels. The technology the breakthroughs for efficient solar panels was in Australia.
Yeah, right.
But the talent went back home and they started their own manufacturing. And that's it. Then, so if you don't retain these talents that you train, it's very difficult to retain this sovereign capability. So there has to be pathways for people, for example, like PhD students or postgraduate students or even migrants who are experienced professionals to come here and see this place as a home and then bring their expertise in and stay here and keep the expertise.
And keep innovating and researching
That's right.
and designing stuff. Because, I think you're right. It's going to be very hard to do because all of the hardware, software, and if you look at the cybersecurity industry, all the tools that are used, the amount designed in Australia, probably like none.
There are some interesting capabilities, but they're usually not, big enough to create a critical mass. So I think, for example, what the Queensland government recently did was they wanted to invest in quantum technologies. I think that's brilliant. Yep. That's the right vision, the right thing to do, because even if it's a risk, you may not achieve it, but at least you've tried. Yeah, you tried building the roads, you tried building the railroads, you tried creating the Qantas.
Yeah.
Right.
Have they done anything with that, quantum computing?
So you'd be surprised. Actually, at UQ, we one of the quantum computation textbooks by Nielsen and Huang was from UQ.
Right.
And it's used around the world.
Yeah,
we have
cool.
Some of the greatest breakthroughs in quantum computation and error correction are from here.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So, but we're missing the foundries, we're missing the manufacturing ecosystem. So hence we have to produce overseas.
Yeah, well, man, we just dig stuff out of the ground and ship it overseas here. That's all we do. It is a problem, actually. I joke a little bit. I did want to ask, so with everything going on in the cyber industry, the last 12 months has been a lot worse than before. Are you seeing a lot more people wanting to study cybersecurity in the last 6-9 months?
Yes, I believe so.
Any stats on that? Like, is it a big increase?
It's a twofold increase, at least from the applications that we receive
in the last 12 months.
In the last 12 months.
Does your is your course a sellout? Oversubscribed? What do they call it?
It's one of the best performing postgraduate courses in the university. Yeah.
Wow.
I can't call it a sellout. It's not a Taylor Swift concert.
I don't know what the term would be. Well, you must have limited capacity.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we say that we are trying to focus on the future leaders. So
right.
We try to keep the qualification cut off.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Ryan, for coming in and sharing insights. I think I've learned a fair amount through this, and I think it's great what you're doing, actually, to be honest. And I think what you're doing is how we make Australia the most cybersecurity country in Australia, right? Like educate more professionals that are in IT or not in IT to get into cybersecurity, and then help small businesses get secure without having to, charge $1 million more than they should be, and that kind of thing. We'll be going through 27,000 at once. So, man, thanks for coming in and what you're doing.
Thanks for your invitation. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.